Hey guys, I want to talk about potential endgame for Marvel Strike Force today and what I'd like to see, because right now I think that's what Marvel Strike Force is lacking. An endgame, something big we're working towards. Of course we have the campaign, but once you finish that, you're probably never going to come back to it unless you're farming out a certain node. I'm talking something big that you build up to, something that you're going to run all the time like World Boss and Future Fight. So we're going to talk about that in this video today. So first off is World Boss. This is a mode in Future Fight that every new player is building up to. Essentially, you take in 3 people with 5 strikers. They don't have to do that in Marvel Strike Force. You just bring in your team of 5, and you're just fighting a single boss, and they're super strong, and they're a very tough fight, but the nice part about it is when you fight them, you then can unlock the World Boss characters to then get on your team. So the concept for this mode is I want this to just be a 5-on-1 battle. I want this to feel huge. I want them to feel intimidating. I don't want them to call in minions. Calling in minions just takes away from the intimidation of the big baddie. I want the whole theme of this mode is that we have Thanos and his lackeys, and they're invading the Earth because, you know, they don't care that Ultimus has come. And usually the Strike Force team wouldn't be interested in taking down just random bad guys who are attacking the world, but what interests them about the World Boss characters, fought them enough, is that if they could collect their biometric data to then look through the dimensions for the good versions of these characters to recruit to their side. I don't know, that's just a little idea for some story. But there's 2 types of bosses I'd like to see here. I'd like the CCable bosses and the non-CCable bosses. Now, if you guys don't know what CC is, that's crowd control, like stuns, webbing, slows, etc, etc. And I want the lackeys to be stunnable, so essentially when you're fighting them, the whole idea of the team fight is you're just going to infinitely stun them so that way your team can slowly beat on them. And then the non-CCable ones are going to focus more on you CCing your team, like with death proof, healing, that kind of stuff, and just out-sustaining them. And I want Thanos to be non-CCable. So the way it's work is you have all 6 of these bosses. So every day you have 5 entries, and what counts as an entry is picking a boss and fighting it and winning. So you can fight any boss 5 times total, but it's 5 shared across all bosses. So say you fight Ebony Maw 5 times, then you're done for the day. You can't fight Proxima Midnight. It's 5 runs total, but you can fight anybody up to 5 times. You get what I'm saying? Or you could spread it out. You could do 2 Proxima Midnight, 2 Ebony Maw, and then 1 Thanos. But at the end of the day, you only have 5 entries. So for winning in this mode, you get like 1 or 2 character shards for the character. They could do like a random drop, 1 to 3. And then this would be how you'd rank up these characters. You could collect their shards from this mode. And this would be interesting because the more times you run it, the quicker you'd build the characters up. But the mode should be hard enough that you'd have to struggle to even clear it once. And this is a big thing you're building up to. You have to dig deep into your roster. You gotta have like 25 really strong characters. I just think it's something cool to build up to always be like, man, I can't wait till I can recruit Thanos and stuff like that. Another mode I want to talk about that Future Fight has is Shadowlands, and essentially this is like a 25 stage thing you go through. I think it's now 30 stages, and you fight through each stage, but you can only use your characters once, and that's a lot for Marvel Strike Force considering they have teams of 5, so 5 times 25, that's like 125 characters, which Marvel Strike Force might be close to, but that's still very deep for a roster. They could start out like 10 stages and then build off of that. But the whole idea is you'd go into each stage, and then you pick between 1 of 3 sets of enemies, and then you use whatever team you're going to use, and then you move on to the next stage. But that team you just used isn't usable again. Now this isn't something I think we need on launch. World Boss, something I think we need on launch. We need something big for people to build up to, but we can wait to release this until like a year later when people have started to build up their rosters and are looking for things to do with them. The story reason for why we'd be doing this, we'd be sieging Ultimus's fortresses across parallel dimensions. That explains why we can fight almost anybody. That's why we do it weekly. I want this to be a weekly thing we do, not a daily, because this is a lot to do. It's a lot of grinding for daily, but if you do it as a weekly thing and it resets every week like Marvel Future Fight, I think that spreads it out enough that you can enjoy it, and it keeps it from happening too often where you start to get irritated by it. And I want them to give good rewards like shard selectors, which are the equivalent of bio selectors from Marvel Future Fight, so they could do on stages that are increments of 5. And what's really nice about shard selectors is that means they can release characters that aren't farmable, but they're still farmable inadvertently. That's what makes it really easy to release characters in Future Fight. They can just throw them out there, and then they'll just assume that you'll get them from the bio selectors in Shadowlands. They don't have to create new stages to put them farmable in or any of that kind of stuff. It just makes it easier for you guys to release characters and have them be farmable, because every character would be farmable. They can decrease the amount of shard selectors you get. You know, you don't want it to be too much, but they could keep it so that way the characters they don't necessarily have a way to farm could then be farmable in here. Or if you don't want to do that, you could do like every stage drops materials that can then be used for whatever you want to call this, like Fortress Siege orbs, and then these have special character shards that are exclusive to this mode. Whatever you guys feel like doing with that mode's rewards. Now guys, get ready for this idea. This is going to be crazy. Sky battles. Now you might be like, sky battles, Pa, that sounds crazy. This is going to be like the galactic wars or space battles in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I played it for a bit, I learned a little bit about the game, and this was the big thing that I thought was really cool. So essentially you collect ship shards, just like character shards, and you unlock ships, you level them up similar to characters, and then you can put the characters you own inside the ships, and then that boosts the stats of the ships based off the characters that you put in. And then you fight these battles in space that are kind of like normal battles, except they're in space, so they're cooler. Now you might say, how's that possible on Marvel Strike Force? Because Marvel isn't necessarily a space-focused universe. Well, they'd have sky battles. So the way this is work is you could use any hero who can fly, like Iron Man, Thor, Doctor Strange, and then characters who can't fly would go in their respective ships. Like we'd have the helicarrier, and S.H.I.E.L.D. characters could hop in there, or Hawkeye's hover bike, and Hawkeye could hop in there, or we could have the Milano, and you throw the Guardians of the Galaxy in there. And of course, they could invent ships for all the other groups, like the Mercenaries, Hydra, AIM, etc., etc. They could probably dig through comics. I'm sure we've seen their ships in the comics. And I want them to have a lot of fun with designing this mode. I think it could be really cool. Just doesn't that sound cool, like sky battles? Now, I don't think this is something they should have on launch or even like a year after. This is something they should keep as like 2 or 3 years down the line where the player base starts to kind of fall off a bit. And this would be a big, hey everybody, please come back. Look at this really cool mode we're adding. I think that's what Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes did, and it worked because this is cool. Like everybody's like, well, that sounds interesting, and they come back to it. So they should save to do this, like not do it on launch, but I want them to prepare for it because you need a strong base in order to build up with this on top of it. So I want them to keep this in mind and build a game that's capable of having this built on top of it. So again, just reiterating, this isn't something that needs to come out soon, but just something for them to keep in the back of their mind. So let me know what you think about these modes down below. Again, World Boss, I want to see on release. Shadowlands, maybe 6 months or a year after release. And then save Sky Battles for whenever you guys feel like it. So I think those would be some really cool modes to see added to Marvel Strike Force, but what do I know? I'm just a 16-year-old. Signing off, guys.